For clarity, we haven't voted yet. We just made a motion and a second, and then brought it to the floor to discuss, and that's what we're doing right now. So we have not voted yet. The second public hearing notice was placed in the paper because we have a legal requirement via statutory. Tennessee code tells us we have to do 15 days a notice before an ordinance can be enacted, and an ordinance is not enacted on the first hearing. An ordinance is enacted after the second hearing. So when this comes up for first hearing, you will already see the public hearing notice for second hearing, so that we are following state law. So that's why that's in there like that. The intention of changing from may to shall was to make it very clear that what drives planned commercial development is the development plan. We are approving the development plan. There's a lot of flexibility that goes into PCD, but there's also a lot of what we expect out of getting a development that is zoned for PCD. In one of the things we want to do is establish a sense of place, allow the design of commercial, office, residential developments that are architecturally and environmentally innovative, that achieve more efficient use of land. It's supposed to bring something nicer to that part of the community. Now, PCD in mixed-use town center does not allow for automotive uses, but a PCD, potentially, they could bring in an automotive use in the PCD out in Watt Road. And do we really want another tire store in a PCD? Or a automotive. We're trying to get away from that type of idea. And so those were the concerns I was bringing up with changing it from may to shall. It put more accent on the fact that the development plan is what's driving this particular zoning, and that's what we're trying to get, something that's more community-based, more walkable, that's what the planned commercial development was supposed to be about originally. So making sure that the concern is placed on the development plan, not this idea that once you have it, you can put any use you want in there, whether it makes sense with the surrounding development or what we're trying to achieve with that PCD. That can be an issue. So that was the driving force of this, was to provide the community with a little more say with what happens in the PCD zoning district. And to Mr. Murphy's concern, the town of Farragut is often the applicant for changes. We update our ordinances on a regular basis because when we just did it a couple of months ago when the Baptist Church came to amend our lighting ordinance so that they could ask for poles. Well, that's still kind of off on the side. They haven't come back. But in the review of that, Mark got an opportunity to go back through that ordinance and bring it back up to date, and that was a town of Farragut applicant. We often update our zoning ordinances to stay current or to remove language that we have an issue with. We removed storage units out of the commercial, what is it, C2? I don't know what that is, just recently, because we don't want storage units by the highway. We learned that lesson the hard way, but we went back and we amended that zoning ordinance for that particular reason. We're all residents here, trying to make our community the best it can be, while adhering to the fact that people have private property rights. We have the right to establish a zoning ordinance. We have the right to set up a land use plan, and we've done those things. And we continue to work. Every property is different. Every property has its own context that we have to work within to make sure that we're not putting in something that is completely out of place. And that takes a lot of thought and a lot of planning and a lot of work with our with developers. And we try to be adhere to people's rights to exercise their property rights. But we also have the zoning ordinances and the abilities we can to control from the town's perspective, from the community's perspective, how that development happens. So that's the reason for this from may to shall to may, is to provide a little bit more control from us, from the community, about what we get from a planned commercial development. They get a lot more flexibility. We want to make sure that in that flexibility, we're getting a development that meets the town standards.